Hello everyone and welcome to a game I could also have titled The Battle of Prodigies, but I've already titled one of the videos that way. It's just that the Prodigies are doing really well in the tournament. And when, talking about Prodigies, people like to throw that word around. But, regarding Praggnanandhaa and Abhimanyu Mishra, there is no other way but discuss them other than Prodigies, as there are only 5 people ever in chess history that have acquired the title of Grandmaster before the age of 13. So at the age of 12, Abhimanyu Mishra is the youngest ever. Second one is Sergei Karyakin, then world champion Gukesh, then Praggnanandhaa is number 4, and the 5th one is the newly crowned Turkish phenom Yavuzkan Erdoğmuş. And yeah, that's pretty much it. 5 of them. And everyone else, although very young, these are the only 5 that became grandmasters at the age of 12. And they're having a great tournament. Both of them started with a draw. Abhimanyu started with a draw against Nodirbek Yakuboev, and Praggnanandhaa started with a draw against Jeffrey Xiong. Then Praggnanandhaa defeated 2 strong players, Ivan Zemlyansky and the legend Boris Gelfand, and Abhimanyu defeated Alexis Arana and Yuan Gui. So it's a great tournament for both of them, but there's only room for one at the top. Okay, 2, because two of the highest placed get a spot in the candidates tournament. And it's a really complicated game, and I don't think you either have to be really young to have to really calculate well to do this, or you have to be so experienced that you just move your hand and the pieces just magically appear at the right squares. So yeah, let's check it out. It's a beautiful game. Praggnanandhaa with white opens with pawn to c4. He opts for the English. We have knight to f6 and knight to f3, pawn to e6 and pawn to b3. Pawn to d5 and bishop to b2. We have bishop to d6 by Abhimanyu, and this is extremely rare. Almost always bishop comes to e7, but Pragg just replies instantly, not burning any time, so obviously he's not surprised by this. We have castles and bishop to g2. We have pawn to c5 and a trade in the center. Captures, we have e captures and pawn to d4. Again, Pragg is still on full time, an hour and 40 minutes on the clock, so he's well within his preparation, I imagine. Knight to c6, and here castles king side. And there are some games where bishop to g4 was played. Rook to e8 is a new move, so as of move 9, we have a completely new game. And Pragg goes knight to c3. It is the first move where he actually spent some time. He spent 7 minutes, so maybe he's still recollecting, or maybe this is where the game really starts. And he's offering the d4 pawn to go for knight b5, and then he wants to recapture. Okay, see, we have knight captures on d4, knight captures, we have c captures, and knight to b5. Now ready to capture on d4, and Abhimanyu says, okay, let's go, bishop to e5, we're just gonna trade everything, and then I'm gonna be very happy. And the reason Praggnanandhaa is doing this is, I imagine, I have no idea, what players at this level think about. He does have this beautiful light square bishop, and Abhimanyu still has to figure out how to place the light square bishop well. With bishop capture, knight captures is also possible, but it looks weird as the bishop on b2 is undefended. It's not a mistake, but again, at this level, it could be. But after bishop to e5, we have bishop captures on d4, bishop captures on d4, knight captures on d4, and now bishop to g4. Looks like an excellent square for the bishop, and Pragg challenges it. And he already burned quite a lot of time. He spent some 20 minutes pondering on h3, and it's definitely worth the ponder, because if you go back bishop to h5, is the bishop really all that useful? Plus, you have to see if maybe g4 is an idea. Probably it's not, but the bishop can be placed better, and also maybe somehow oppose the light square bishop on g2. So after h3, bishop back to d7. We have pawn to e3, nicely played. Pragg puts all of his pieces and pawns on dark squares, and he has a light square bishop to complement them on the light squares. We have rook to c8, getting the rook to the open c file, and now Pragg goes knight to e2, which isn't a mistake or anything. It just makes it very, very easy for Abhimanyu to get rid of his light square bishop, and he does it. Bishop to b5. like I said, it's not a bad bishop for the moment. It's not doing all that much, but Prague's knight, for example, on d4 could be potentially very, very strong. As you have a light square bishop, you cannot oppose the knight on a dark square. So he pins it, we have rook e1, and now he trades. Bishop captures on e2, we have rook captures on e2, and now knight to e4, saying, if you want, we can trade, and then we trade everything. We trade queens, and we call it a day. Prague says, nope, let's play this a little bit more. We have rook c2, queen to f6, now putting pressure on that rook and also on the f2 pawn, so you have to be careful. Rook a to c1, doubling up, threatening to capture, and you don't really gain anything by capturing. Then the other rook comes to c2, helps out with the defense of f2, plus you gain control of the c file. So Abhimanyu goes rook c to d8, and now Prague plays queen f3. He offers a queen trade, and Abhimanyu obliges. We have queen captures, bishop captures, and king to f8. When the endgame has been reached, it's time to improve the position of the king. But now also rook to c7 becomes possible. Okay, rook e7, that's why the king is on f8. Bishop to g4, saying, okay, you will not be able to put any rooks on d7, good sir. And, what do you play here? So knight to d6 by Abhimanyu. He will defend that b7 pawn, so the knight is very well placed on d6. And Prague trades. We have rook captures, king captures, and the other rook comes to c7. Rook c7 check. And now if you go back to f8, then bishop f3, and you lose a pawn. Either this pawn or you move the knight to defend the d5 pawn, and you lose the b7 pawn. So after rook c7 check, king to f6 was played, and now we have king to f1. Now bishop to f3, just king e5. And it looks a little bit scary. You don't have f4, and even if you prepare it, then just rook c8. And if f4 check, you can play king back to e6, and you don't have to worry about anything. Now you're going to trade rooks, and you're perfectly fine. So Prague goes king to f1 with g6 and pawn to h4, pawn to h5, and like we said, with bishop f3, king e5. So Prague goes bishop to h3, and now king to e5 with pawn to f4 check. Pawn to f3 also looks very nice, as pretty much all of the squares surrounding the black king are covered. But after f5, black really has no more problems here. So Prague goes for the immediate pawn to f4 check. This forces the black king back. If you go forward, then king e2, and no way to really save this game, because your checkmate is being threatened here. And if you play d4 to make some room for your king, then rook e7 check, king to d5, and now e4 check. And you're just lost here. There's not much to be done. Of course, if captures, then rook to e4 check, and you win the knight once the king moves. So a very, very tricky position. So after f4 check, king back to f6, and now king to e2 by Prague, followed by rook to e8. And this is the beginning of a poorly chosen plan for Abhimanyu, but he's already down to 6 minutes on the clock. Better would have been something like pawn to a5, but still, it's, incredibly difficult to take advantage of this. Prague goes king to f3. We have rook to e7, offering a rook trade, and now rook c5, where you really don't have a good way of defending the pawn here. You could give it up by advancing it to d4, and that is exactly what Abhimanyu does. Or you could try something like knight e4. It doesn't really defend the pawn. Maybe it gets you a favorable position. Something like captures, you attack the rook and the pawn, then the rook has to go back to d2. And okay, maybe it's a little bit better, but, it's very hard to say. So pawn to d4, and Prague just captures the pawn. E captures on d4, and now Prague is up a pawn, and he has the passed d pawn. Whether he can win it, yes, if he plays well. Rook to e8, we have rook to c7, again paralyzing the knight, so the b7 pawn is weak. And now comes rook to e7, and this makes it easier for Prague to make progress this game. You should play something like knight b5, you attack the rook and the pawn, and now after rook d7, you go rook e7, threaten to trade rooks, and then just pick up the pawn. And after captures, and king to e3 defending, now pawn to f5. You're still down a pawn, but that white king is not going anywhere. And you can put a knight on d6. You're going to control c4, which is a light square, so it makes your life much, much easier. But okay, after rook c7, Abhimanyu offered a trade. He's already down to 3 minutes on the clock and 4 more moves to make to reach time control. Rook captures on e7, and king captures on e7. And now Prague is winning, but you have to find the correct idea. So have at it. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Prague while I give you a couple of seconds. The move is pawn to f5, stopping black from playing pawn to f5. But the fun does not stop here. Abhimanyu could capture. If he captures with the g-pawn, then this becomes weak. You go king f4, king f6, and yes, you're defending the pawn, but you're playing the rest of the game without your king or the knight, or otherwise you're just going to pick up the f5 pawn, then push g4, and then you have the passed h-pawn, and that's completely winning. Or on the other hand, if knight captures, this makes your life even easier because you just trade pieces, captures, king f4, king f6, and you advance the d-pawn, and that's it. Whatever black plays, you just advance the pawn, and after king d6, you advance it further, captures, you pick up this pawn, and again, you know, the h-pawn will win the game easily. So after f5, Abhimanyu plays king to f6, which seemingly doesn't help all that much, but it makes it a little bit of a problem for Pragg to actually win this. There are two good moves here, but one is good enough, the other one is only good. So which of the two would you play here? I'm sure you're looking at them, you know, as I'm talking, but it's not an easy decision. What would you play here? Congratulations if you found this one, because Pragg didn't. Pragg played f captures and g6. The cleaner way, or rather the precise way, would have been king to f4. And the point is that now there's no way for black to stop you from entering the position with the king. And even if you play something like knight b5, just to waste moves, and then you go back knight to d6, because the knight on d6 is crucial for keeping the white king off of the e4 square. Then you trade f captures, and now you can't go to e4 right away because knight to c3 check picks up the a2 pawn. You have to go back to e3, and once knight d6 happens, taking away the e4 square from the white king, now you play g4. With the threat of g5 check, then you take away f6, you take away all of these squares, and that will be enough to win the game. So black will have to captures, and then again, after wasting a couple of moves, you will play bishop f3, attack the pawn, and after b6, you take away the b5 square from the knight. And once knight d6 happens, then you go bishop g4, and now it's winning. Either either you enter via the position via the dark squares, or the knight moves, and then you enter the position via the light square. So black will not be able to avoid not moving the knight and the king. So it's not easy, very difficult, and especially with two more moves needed for time control to be reached. Pragg played f captures and g6, which, like I said, looks good enough, but endgames are difficult. Look at this. King captures on g6 in this particular instance. King to f4. Pragg very happy, trying to get the king to e5. And now pawn to f6. And now if you look at this, there doesn't seem to be a way for Pragg to enter the game with the king, because look at the pawn here. Or rather, let's make a few more moves. Bishop g2 attacks the pawn, and pawn to b6. Now look at this. The pawns are covering the dark squares, and the knight here, look at the knight, beautifully placed on d6, covers all of these squares. So now that everything is red, you realize that there's no way for the king to actually enter the game. And the knight is on a dark square, so your light square bishop is useless in chasing it away. So Pragg goes pawn to a4, we have king to g7, just wasting a move. And now it's not easy to make a move. Pragg played all of the best moves after he made that f captures on g6 instead of moving the king. But even if you play like the top engine moves here, like bishop f3, you attack the pawn, king to g6, bishop to e2, wasting a move, king h6, you improve the bishop a little bit, taking away some squares from the king, king g7, and bishop to e4. Still, you know, black will just waste a move. Nothing is really happening here. So it's very, very difficult to actually break through here, if at all possible. So after king to g7, Pragg tried pawn to a5. Okay, you destroy the pawn structure on the queen side. Maybe then you create some squares for your king to enter. But Abhimanyu, of course, ignores it. For him, all that matters is that even if Pragg trades, his pawn on b6 will still cover a5 and c5. So king to h6, we have bishop to f3, king to g6, and bishop to c6. Now we have king to g7. pawn to b4 and king to g6. Abhimanyu very happy, just repeating moves here. And Pragg realizes that there is no way to break through, and he plays pawn to a6. We have king to g7, bishop to a4, and now a couple of more moves were played. King g6, bishop to d1, king h6, d5, king to g6, bishop to a4, and now there really is no more way to break through here. Like I said, pawns covering dark squares, the knight that's on a dark square covering all of the light squares. So it's a very, very unique position where Pragg is up a pawn, and usually bishop versus knight up a pawn. You should be able to win, but as I always say, knights are tricky bastards, and this is the trickiest one. So yeah, king g7, bishop d1, king g6, bishop e2, a couple of more moves were made, and it was in this position on move 57 that the players agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here. Maybe, I think it was even a draw by threefold repetition. So yeah, incredible stuff here. Both of them playing incredibly well. With 3 out of 4. I'm going to show you the standings. I think Abhimanyu even has a rating performance of 2900. I don't know what's Pragg's performance. I can check. Just give me a second. Pragg's performance, if you guys are interested. Yeah, Pragg is performance 2800. Abhimanyu had some tougher opponents. But these are the standings after 4 rounds have been played. So Parham Maksudlu, 3 wins and a draw, the only one in first place, not sharing it with anyone. Then with 3 points, we have Abhimanyu, Yaos Khan, Marc-Andrea Maurizi, who defeated the other Frenchman, the number 1 Frenchman, or rather the number 2 Frenchman, now that Alireza is also a Frenchman, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Then Simon Gumularts, also with 3 points. Gukesh, world champion, 3 points. Arjun Ergaisi, 3 points. Gukesh and Arjun drew their game. They played against each other. Then Nodrbek with 3, Vincent Keimer with 3, Praggnanandhaa with 3, Richard Rapport. Rapport beat Predrag Nikolic, no, sorry, not Predrag Nikolic, Alexander Pretke, in a position where it's a draw, but Pretke had a minute on the clock, and he just resigned. He thought it was lost, but there was a way to save the game. It was actually quite an interesting position. Matthias Blubam also on 3, Nodrbek Kuboev, Nikita Vityugov, and then with 2.5, a whole lot of people, Saleh Salem, Ivan Chaparino, Robert Hovhannisyan, and so on and so on. But yeah, Parham definitely doing well on his way into the candidates tournament, but so is everyone on 3 points, and probably even, people on 2.5 points, if they do well, still can qualify. So it's still open for everyone. I'm very much looking forward to who ends up in the candidates. So yeah, beautifully played. Pragg did outplay him, but Abhimanyu shows why he is world-class and why he always says that he has only one goal, and that is to become world champion. So that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Stephen Wentworth, Knightmaster Bishop, Christian Fisher, Mohammad Reza Yuza, and Carmen Polifronio for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you still haven't, first link in the description below, download Lotus Chess and start improving your chess today. It is the best thing out there. See you soon.